You're now listening to Boring History for Sleep, the Art of Falconry and Feathers in 12th century Persia. So find a cozy spot, let your breathing slow, and let this quiet journey carry you back to the deserts, markets, and silent wings of medieval Persia. Hey guys, tonight we take a slow walk into a world of silent wings, velvet hoods, and feathery royalty. You're standing at the edge of a bustling bazaar in 12th century Persia. The air is warm, scented with cardamom smoke, and the distinct musk of animal pens. You can hear a lute being lazily plucked nearby. Ahead, there's a commotion not over spices, silks, or even dates but over birds. Falcons. Not just any falcons though. These are majestic, sharp-edged creatures, perched calmly on their master's gloved hands, like emperors on tiny golden thrones. Their leather jesses dangle, their heads crowned with delicately tooled hoods. A breeze stirs the dust, and you feel it lift your sleeves slightly as you drift toward the action. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with your city and the local time. I always love seeing where in the world you're falling asleep from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You slide between woven carpet stalls and copper merchants, each call of yek dinner, my friend, blending into the next. But the falconer's quarter is quieter, reverent even. These men are dressed simply but finely, with loose robes, worn leather boots, and weathered gloves darkened from years of carrying birds. The falcons rest with serene dignity, blinking slowly or fluffing their chest feathers, just so like they've all read the same etiquette scroll. Your eye catches a stall lined with wooden perches, each supporting a different bird. There's a Saker falcon broad-winged and stocky, a Barbary falcon sleek and restless, and, like a crown jewel, a regal gerfalcon with alabaster feathers flecked with gray. Its eyes the color of thunderclouds before a desert storm. You watch as a young boy timidly offers a trimmed quail to one of the birds. The falcon doesn't move at first. Then, in a blink, it strikes graceful and precise, not a feather out of place. The boy gasps. The bird resumes its stance, like nothing happened. You're impressed and mildly terrified. You linger near an elderly vendor who sells dyed feathers. His hands are stained from indigo and saffron, and he fans out a bundle of tail plumes like a deck of shimmering cards. Ostrich, peacock, stork each has its place. The ostrich feathers are bleached in sour yogurt, then dyed in crushed walnut husks for a rich chestnut hue. He tells you, half whispering, that Persian nobles once believed attaching a stork feather to your turban would grant you sky thinking, a form of sharp judgment. Historians still argue whether that's superstition or early marketing. One woman bold, veiled, and commanding walks past, with a kestrel resting lightly on her shoulder. The bird seems completely at ease, surveying the market like it's planning a heist. The woman locks eyes with you and smirks. You look away too fast and pretend to admire a basket of dried apricots, smooth as you wander deeper. You begin to notice how much this world revolves around falconry. A man sharpens tiny tools used for beak trimming. Another braids silken jesses dyed with pomegranate. One stall sells nothing but delicately embroidered hoods, each more ornate than the last. From plain brown suede to one encrusted with lapis beads and what looks suspiciously like gold thread dot in a side alley. A group of boys is arguing over who can mimic a falcon's cry best. You listen in. Most sound like strangled chickens. One boy, though tall, wiry, missing a front tooth, nails it. Even a nearby falcon swivels its head toward him. His friends go silent. He puffs his chest out like he's already hired by the royal court. You have to admit it was weirdly impressive. A scholarly-looking man nearby tells you, unprompted, that Persian falconry wasn't just for sport. Oh no, It was tied too far, or divine glory and invisible radiance that kings were said to carry, especially when accompanied by noble animals, like falcons or hunting cheetahs. To control the falcon, he intones solemnly, is to control the heavens. Then he spills sesame seeds on his sandals and curses, very unphilosophically. You step aside, as a large man in embroidered robes walks past, carrying a bird you don't recognize. It's huge, black feathers with silver sheens, and a stare that says, "I eat goats for breakfast." The crowd parts for him. You overhear someone mutter that he's the Shah's cousin's falcon master. Others claim he once trained a bird to retrieve rings from enemy tents at night. A few scoff. Historians still argue whether falcons were ever used in actual battlefield espionage or if that's just a Persian bard embellishing a boring border raid. Either way, the man's presence commands attention. He looks at you. You instinctively bow. The bird doesn't blink. By mid-morning, the sun is climbing. The falcons begin to shift slightly, sensing the heat coming. Some falconers cover their birds with fine linen cloths. Others bring out small bowls of cool water, letting the birds dip their beaks briefly. You see a merchant gently mist a bird's wings with rose water, a detail you'll file away under surprisingly luxurious spa treatments I can't afford. And still, the market murmurs on bartering, bird calls, sandal shuffles. Somewhere a girl sings a lullaby to a hooded hawk. The sky is pale blue and smells like bread. You're already tired, and this is just the beginning. You don't quite remember how it happened. Maybe you made the mistake of loitering too close to a falconer's stall. Or maybe you're wide-eyed gawking, screamed willing volunteer. But next thing you know, you're being introduced as the apprentice. The falconer, a middle-aged man with a beard that could store winter nuts, claps a heavy hand on your shoulder. "You'll do," he says. "That's the entirety of your job interview." You're now standing in a dusty courtyard, surrounded by low stone walls and 3 tethered falcons. They're watching you, each with the kind of judgmental stillness that says, "Please fumble so we may laugh." And oh, you fumble. The first task is simple, observe. But your instructor, Master Rostam, throws around terms like Bizi, Nama, the falconer's manual, and Shark-Satan training loops so casually, you nod as if you understand. You don't. You barely remember what side of the glove the bird is supposed to sit on. Falconry, it turns out, is 90% standing still and 10% trying not to lose a finger. You're given a glove stiff with old bird sweat and pointed toward a restless saker falcon. You extend your arm. The bird narrows its eyes. You flinch. It does not move. You try again. Still nothing. Then hop. It lands on your wrist with surprising grace and unsettling weight. The pressure is immediate. Not painful, but solid, like balancing a warm, feathered melon with murder talons. You try to breathe casually. "Good," says Master Rostam. "Now walk." You walk slowly, like a man, sneaking past a sleeping baby dragon. The bird adjusts itself slightly, claws gently shifting on your wrist. You keep walking. Your heart is louder than your sandals. "Too stiff," Rostam says, strolling beside you. The bird can feel your fear. That's comforting. Over the next few days, you learn the rhythm of training. Before sunrise, you help unhoot the birds. Then you weigh them. Yes, every morning. Falcons fly best at a specific weight, and a single extra fig stolen from the feeding trough could turn a sleek hunter into a sulking diva. You scribble numbers in a wax tablet, double-checking for mistakes. If your bird's weight is off, Master Rostam just says, "Try again," and hands you a shovel. Falcon poop is your new spiritual punishment. One morning, while scrubbing down a perch, you overhear 2 older apprentices arguing about whether saffron-infused diets really sharpen a falcon's vision. One swears by it. The other insists it's just expensive nonsense pushed by merchants with yellow fingers. Historians still argue whether Persian falconers really believed in these spice-enhanced birds, or if they were simply indulging in a luxury diet fad. 800 years early. Meanwhile, you struggle to tie the jess, the thin leather strap around the bird's ankle. It's supposed to be simple. It is not. The bird glares. Your fingers fumble. Eventually, the falcon pecks you lightly on the thumb. A polite hurry up, it seems. You're also taught the sacred art of hooding covering the falcon's head, with a tiny leather cap to calm it. But the first time you try, you miss, drop the hood, and nearly poke the bird's beak. It responds by screaming directly into your face. You scream too. You are both very loud. Master Rostam doesn't laugh, but you hear a slight wheeze. Later that week, you're sent to collect fresh quail meat from a nearby hunter. On the way, you meet a boy who claims his uncle once trained a falcon to open walnut shells mid-flight. You doubt this? The boy insists. He draws you a detailed diagram in the dust with his foot. You take a mental note. Persian alley kids are wildly creative. Back at the compound, the training intensifies. You're handed a lure, a stuffed bit of rabbit fur, on a string and told to run. In circles, on sand, with a falcon overhead. The goal. Teach the bird to associate that lure with a kill. Your actual experience. Getting sand in places sand should not go. And being buzzed by talons every 15 seconds. By evening, you're exhausted and sun-crisped. Your arm has permanent indentations from the glove, and your eyebrows smell faintly of pigeon. But something has shifted. The falcon no longer glares at you with total disdain. Maybe 70% disdain now. You're even invited to sit during the evening meal. It's humble fare flatbread, lentils, and dates, but you're grateful. One of the older falconers shares a story about a shah who demanded his bird be buried with him in a solid jade box. Another scoffs, saying the bird was buried with its own miniature saddle. They argue gently as the sky dims to copper. You don't care who's right. The bread is warm. That night, as the birds are hooded and the compound falls silent, you stand in the courtyard and breathe the thick dusk air. A falcon shifts on its perch, rustling slightly, then stills. You feel lighter, like maybe you're part of something now. Or maybe it's just heat stroke. Hard to say. You wake to the sound of claws on stone, soft, scratchy, deliberate. Somewhere nearby, a falcon stretches its wings, feathers whispering like silk against the morning. You sit up on your thin cot, back aching, arms still a little bruised from yesterday's gentle lesson in lure running. But today isn't about training. Today is about craft. Master Rostam grunts a single word as he tosses you a bundle wrapped in oilcloth feathers. You trail behind him to a different part of the compound, one you haven't visited before. The air here smells different, earthy, with a hint of vinegar and something musky. You peek inside the bundle. It's filled with a strange collection. Loose feathers, tiny shears, dull-edged knives, a few thread-wrapped spindles, and several waxy jars labeled in scratchy ink. Rostam waves toward a long bench beneath an awning. On it, a row of feathers is laid out, with the precision of a physician's tools. This is where damaged birds get repaired, where molted feathers are replaced, softened, trimmed, reinforced. It's not surgery. It's feather alchemy. The first lesson. Identifying feathers by touch, not just by sight, because those colors lie. Instead, you're told to close your eyes and feel each one. Listen for the softness of down, the stiffness of a primary flight feather, the faint grit of sand in a tail plume. One is smoother than expected. Goose, says Rostam. Wrong bird. For soup, not sky. He chuckles at his own joke. You smile politely, pretending you haven't had goose stew 3 days in a row. Soon you're shown how feathers are dyed. It's a surprisingly precise process. The plumes must be cleaned with fermented rice water, then soaked in mixtures made from crushed walnut husks, madder root, or the dried husks of pomegranates. You stir a batch slowly, watching the colors shift like a desert sunset ochres, deepening into rust, soft grays, warming into smoky plums, the most prized feathers. Peacock tail, plumes are iridescent, opulent, rare, but not native to Persia, not really. They're smuggled in, often tucked inside goat-hide waterskins on trade caravans. You're shown one that still smells faintly of mint and camel. Nice. Some believe the eyes on the peacock feathers ward off evil. Others claim they confuse hawks in mid-air combat. Historians still argue whether those decorative feathers were ever actually functional in falconry, or if people just liked shiny things. Honestly, both seem plausible. Next comes the craft of feather repair. You watch as Rostam demonstrates the delicate art of imping the replacement of a broken feather. He shaves the shaft down to a clean break, selects a matching spare from a drawer of labeled bundles. They're organized by size, species, and color like the world's deadliest scrapbook, and uses a tiny sliver of hollow bone as a connector. The two shafts are joined, bound lightly with glue made from rabbit hide, and set to dry in a tray of clean sand. Your first attempt goes poorly. The feather you choose is too short. The splice doesn't hold. You manage to glue a bit of your own sleeve to the shaft. The bird it's intended for gives a single disgruntled squawk and turns its back. Fairdot, in a corner of the tent, a young woman works silently, threading dyed feathers into a braid of horsehair. You ask what it's for. She shrugs. Court finery, she says. For a prince's glove, or a girl's wedding sash. Same thing. You learn that falconry isn't limited to birds. It extends to an entire microeconomy of artisans, tanners, hoodmakers, embroiderers, dye-mixers. One man, face nearly hidden behind a black-streaked beard, makes his living solely from trimming tail feathers into elegant spirals meant to be sewn into turbans. Another weaves jesses from silk threads boiled in vinegar, claiming it makes them stronger and luckier. He smells vaguely of salad. You help deliver a finished batch of cleaned, dyed plumes to a trader who deals in finery. His stall is lined with copper bowls filled with lapis beads and tiny bells. He picks through the feathers like a jeweler sorting rubies. This one's too red, he grumbles, holding up a saffron-dyed ostrich plume. It screams. You weren't aware feathers could scream, but you nod wisely. While there, you overhear two older men arguing about the value of kestrel feathers. In love spells, one insists they attract fidelity. The other says they guarantee betrayal. The stallkeeper rolls his eyes and mutters something about keeping feathers out of romantic affairs entirely. Sensible man, by late afternoon, you're back at the compound, your hands stained walnut brown, and your brain filled with more feathered trivia than you thought possible. You now know how to tell a tail feather from a covert, how to split a shaft without splintering it, and how to politely decline when someone tries to sell you phoenix down. Hint, it's just dyed chicken fluff. That night, while preparing the falcons for rest, you gently stroke the side of your assigned bird's wing. The feathers shimmer faintly in the moonlight. You remember how much work went into even one of those perfect quills. And now you know why Persian falconers were just as much artists as hunters. Their canvas flew on the wind. You've just finished oiling your boots with rancid sheep fat, don't ask, when a rustle of voices sweeps through the courtyard like a breeze laced with excitement. Word spreads faster than you can finish tying your sash. A prince is coming. More specifically, a prince and his peregrine. Master Rostam doesn't say much. He never does, but he runs a comb through his beard, which you're starting to realize is his version of a red carpet moment. By midday, the compound is transformed. Falconers straighten perches. Apprentices sweep the same stretch of ground 3 times over. Someone even polishes the brass water dishes until they shimmer like sunlight on a stream. You're assigned to stand still and look vaguely competent. It's a stretch. Then the royal procession arrives. No trumpets, no silk banners, just a quiet rustling of footsteps on gravel. and the gentle clink of rings against a falcon's jesses. He's young, maybe 20, with sharp eyes and a tunic stitched in indigo and gold thread. His beard is neatly trimmed, his posture painfully straight. But all your attention goes to the falcon on his arm, a peregrine, sleek as flowing ink, with plumage that flickers from steel gray to warm cream as she shifts. Her hood is unlike any you've seen, deep green velvet, edged with tiny pearls, and bearing a tiny ruby in the shape of a crescent moon. Her name, you later overhear, is Zara, which means shining or flower, depending on how romantic the translator feels that day. The prince doesn't smile, but he nods at Master Rostam. Then he does something unexpected. He offers you a glance. Not a full look, just a flicker, as if silently judging whether your glove is on backwards. It is. You fix it discreetly. The falcon is the real center of gravity. Every step she takes is deliberate. Every twitch of her tail is a paragraph of meaning. The prince lifts his arm and removes her hood with a single motion. Her eyes, sharp as polished obsidians, nap into focus. The courtyard falls utterly still. He releases her. Zara launches into the air, with the smoothness of silk slipping off polished wood. You tilt your head up, mouth slightly open, as she rises higher and higher in tight spirals. No frantic flapping, those enormous wings pumping like quiet thunder. Then the prince lets out a soft whistle and raises. A Laura shimmering decoy wrapped in crimson ribbon, with a dive faster than you thought possible. Zara drops like a stone from heaven and snatches the lure midair, then sweeps back to perch with feline grace. The applause is silent. Nobody claps, but heads nod, eyebrows raise, and Master Rostam gives a rare approving grunt. After the demonstration, the prince allows the falcon to rest in the shade. You're permitted a closer look. Her plumage is immaculate, every feather preened, every talon polished. Her beak is faintly stained from her meal, something quail-like and expensive. Her jesses are braided silk, dyed a shade you've never seen before, like a plum that's decided to become a storm cloud. The prince finally speaks. His voice is low and smooth. He tells a story about how Zara once caught a heron in mid-flight over a river, and how the splash was so dramatic that a painter tried to capture it, but ruined his robes in the process. He's clearly told the tale before. You pretend it's new. Later, you eavesdrop shamelessly on a discussion between the prince and Rostam about bloodlines. Not royal ones, even. These falcons, it turns out, have lineages as complex as dynasties. The prince mentions a bird from Andalusia, with divine wing symmetry, and another from Samarkand, known for uncanny verticality. You don't know what that means, but you nod solemnly. There's even a whispered debate over a legendary white falcon, once gifted by a Norse king. Historians still argue whether this exchange ever happened, or if it's just an embroidered diplomatic fable to explain why one sultan had a falcon that hated the sun and adored pickled herring. As the sun begins to dip, the prince invites only Rostam to a private discussion. You're left to tend to Zara. She watches you with mild curiosity. You offer her a strip of meat. She declines, then blinks slowly, like royalty tolerating a peasant's gift. You try not to take it personally while adjusting her perch. You notice something hidden beneath the velvet edge of her hood, a tiny embroidery of a poem in Kufic script. You can't read it, but someone whispers that it's an old line from Rumi. You were born with wings. Why prefer to crawl through life? You mentally add falcon couture poetry to your list of things 12th century Persians absolutely did better than anyone. By the time the prince and his retinue leave, the courtyard is cloaked in the warm gold of evening. Zara is hooded once more, her presence lingering in the silence like incense. As you sweep the courtyard, you overhear one apprentice say, "That bird eats better than I do." Another replies, "That bird lives better than I do." You just nod. Same. The morning begins with a command so casual, you almost don't register it. Grab the rabbit, Master Rostam mutters, pointing to a ragged bundle of fur and twine that looks suspiciously like a flattened sock puppet with whiskers. This, apparently, is the lure. You hold it gingerly between two fingers, like someone who's just discovered a questionable sandwich in their satchel. It flops in your hand, and you wonder if it's supposed to look this ... lifeless. Rostam says nothing, just hands you a long fraying cord and gestures toward the empty training field. Run, he says, and make it dance. You blink. Dance. He smirks. Yes, seduce the bird. Not the phrase you expected before breakfast, but that's what you do. You take off across the field, dragging the rabbit lure behind you, jerking it up and down with what you hope is rhythm and not a full body. Cramp? You feel like a one-person puppet show, with no audience except, of course, for the sharp-eyed predator, now circling above you with increasing interest. This is the art of the lure tradition that dates back centuries. Used to train falcons in precision attacks. You're learning that it's not just about movement. It's about timing, flair, temptation. A falcon will not be tricked by limp enthusiasm. Somewhere above, the bird dives. You panic, trip on your own cord, and fall flat. The lure lands in your lap. A feathered thunderbolt passes within inches of your ear, snatches the rabbit thing from your knees, and disappears into the air. Rostam just says, better. You're learning to lose with grace. The next lesson involves swinging. You're taught how to spin the lure in smooth circles above your head, controlled hypnotic, mimicking the frantic energy of prey mid-flight. It looks deceptively simple when Rostam does it. When you try, it ends with the cord wrapping around your neck like an overly dramatic scarf and the lure slapping your face. A nearby apprentice snorts. You ignore him. You practice again and again, until your arms ache and your fingers blister. But something shifts. The rhythm returns. The lure circles cleanly. You can feel the air catch it just right. Rostam finally nods. Now call the bird. You whistle, a low note, sharp and steady. The falcon launches. This one's younger, hungrier, less patient than Zara. She streaks through the sky like an arrow of flame and shadows. You time the drop, lowering the lure just enough for her to snatch it with a snap of talons. She lands nearby, wings flared, eyes proud. You kneel and offer her a reward, fresh meat from your pouch. She accepts it, delicately, like royalty sipping soup. You're finally starting to get the hang of this. Later that day, you gather with the others beneath a tree whose branches droop like sleepy eyelids. One of the older apprentices tells a story about a famed falconer who could lure 3 birds, at once one with each hand and one with his teeth. You assume this is exaggeration, but the others nod gravely. Historians still argue whether that technique ever existed, or if it's just the falconer equivalent of a fishing tail. You clean your gear in silence. The rabbit lure is matted and fraying, but you now see it with new eyes. It's more than bait. It's a conversation, wordless, precise, old. Rostam tosses you a newer lure to finish the day's lesson. This one is wrapped in crimson cloth, with bells sewn in at the seams. When it spins, it sings a soft jingle, like wind chimes caught in a storm. You test it slowly. The sound draws attention. Even the falcons still hooded on their perches shift slightly, instinct twitching in their chests. That evening, a visitor arrives, another falconer from the northern steppes. He carries no birds, only stories. Over fire and lentils, he speaks of an ancient Cossack technique where falconers use nothing but their breath to mimic dying prey. Supposedly, the hawk knows the difference. He demonstrates. It's eerie and uncomfortably accurate. You make a note never to sleep near him. Someone else jokes about the infamous wine-fed lure, a brief, ill-fated trend among a few indulgent nobles who believed soaking the lure in wine made the bird fly with more passion. It usually made them vomit. One falcon, legend claims, got so drunk it tried to attack the moon. Historians, predictably, are still debating that one. As the fire crackles and the stars blink into being, you feel the muscle memory building in your fingers. The lure isn't just a tool anymore. It's an extension of your arm, a breath on the wind. You begin to imagine yourself, not as a runner or a flailing fool, but as a performer, a dancer. The bird's partner in a silent duet, played out in sky and earth, and for a fleeting moment, as the smoke curls upward and the falcons settle into slumber, you let yourself believe that maybe, just maybe, you've earned their attention. It's not every day you're invited to a royal feast. Actually, it's not even invited. More like assigned to stand in a corner and hold a bird, which, let's be honest, is your entire job description at this point. Still, the prospect is exciting. You've heard whispers: roasted duck, glazed with saffron, candied dates from Basra, rice piled high with slivers of almond and orange peel, enough to make your stomach growl just thinking about it. So when Master Rostam gestures for you to prepare, you scrub your hands, straighten your robe, and try to look like you haven't recently been pecked on the ear. The event is held in a shaded courtyard lined with silk banners fluttering like lazy butterflies, water burbles from a marble fountain shaped like a lion. Cushions in every shade of jewel are arranged beneath low cedar tables, where noblemen recline in that casual way only people who've never cleaned falcon droppings can manage. And the falcons, oh, they're already here, perched atop elaborately carved stands. Each bird wears a hood more luxurious than your best tunic. Embroidered with silver threads and garnished with tiny bells, they look like avian aristocrats attending a masquerade ball. Some falcons sit with their noble handlers, nestled calmly on thick leather gloves. Others, more restless, are stationed nearby on perches dusted with powdered rose petals. Yes, you heard that right, rose petals. Apparently, it soothes their feet. Your assigned bird for the evening is Shapper, a proud Saker falcon with a temperament somewhere between diva and coiled spring. He tolerates uberly. You whisper soothing nonsense in his ear and offer a morsel of spiced quail from your pouch. He blinks, accepts it, and promptly wipes his beak on your sleeve. Progress. The feast begins with music's off drums, a reed flute, the rhythmic clack of spoons, struck together in time. Then the food arrives in waves, carried by servants moving in near silence. The smell is overwhelming. Cinnamon, lamb fat, sweet wine, baked apricots. Your stomach makes a noise that earns you a glare from Shapper. You're not invited to sit, of course. You stand behind your prince's cushion, straight-backed and alert. Your only job: don't let the falcon bolt into the honeyed figs. Seems simple, but then a partridge leg lands nearby. Nobody sees who flung it, perhaps a bored child, perhaps a tipsy noble, but Shapper sees it, and in a flash of wings and talons, he's airborne. You lurch forward, arm extended like a fool, shouting his name as elegantly as possible. The other falcons erupt in a chorus of offended screeches. Cushions are appended. A servant spills a pitcher of pomegranate wine directly into a lute. The prince just watches, bemused, as your bird circles once, then returns. He lands on your glove with a proud little hop and an expression that says, "You're welcome." There's silence. Then someone claps. You try not to faint. After the chaos dies down, you return to your post. Someone brings you a small bowl of stewed chickpeas and bread as thanks. You eat behind a pillar, hoping nobody notices the bite you dropped into your shoe during the feast. A storyteller stands to entertain the guests. She speaks of a falcon named Layla, trained to detect poison by scent. She'd sit beside nobles at banquets and scream if she sensed danger. One day she didn't scream, but licked the cup. The noble died. The falcon flew away and was never seen again. Historians still argue whether Layla ever existed, or if she's just a feathered morality tale meant to scare careless wine drinkers. The evening continues with games, archery contests, juggling performances, and a strange sport involving trained ferrets and a miniature maze. The falcons remain calm through it all. Well, most of them. One particularly moody gerfalcon keeps clicking its beak at anyone who walks too close, including a very surprised goat. At one point, a nobleman boasts that his bird can catch a falling fig mid-air. To prove it, he hurls a fig skyward. The bird ignores it completely. The fig lands in someone's turban. There is polite coughing. You make your way around the courtyard, carefully observing the other falconers. You see how one tilts his hand ever so slightly to shift his bird's balance. How another subtly scratches behind a hooded eye slit to calm a restless flyer. You start to notice the secret grammar of gloved hands. A flick here, a flex. They're communicating entire sentences between handler and hunter. Later, as stars begin to freckle the sky, the nobles lie back on their cushions, full of wine and dates. The birds are hooded once again. Their shapes, now still and statuesque, blend into the garden like living ornaments. You find yourself near the fountain, alone with Shapper, who for once seems entirely at ease. You kneel beside him, letting the cool splash of water soothe your wrists. He yawns silently, then tucks one leg under his body. You're oddly honored. You reflect that this entire feast wasn't for people at all, it was for the falcons. The nobles came for the spectacle. But the birds, proud and precise, were the true guests of honor. You lean back, head resting against a stone, eyes closing briefly. One more bite of roasted duck wouldn't hurt. If only someone would fling it your way. The day begins with a ruckus. Not the normal kind, like someone spilling barley or forgetting to tether a mule. No, this is serious. There's shouting, running. A distinct lack of falcon. Shapper is missing. You wake to the sound of Master Rostam, swearing in Old Persian, which you didn't even know he spoke. You throw on your robe backwards, yank it right again, and sprint to the courtyard. Shapper's perch is empty. His jesses dangle loosely. One of the apprentices insists he saw the bird take off toward the hills, but then amends that to maybe just up to the roof. Another claims he heard a squawk from the bathhouse. Someone else blames the goat. The goat offers no comment. What follows is a full-scale feather hunt. You're assigned to check the rooftops. There you go, sandals slapping against clay tiles, peering into chimneys and waving a slice of raw lamb like it's an invitation to a sky banquet. No sign. You shout his name, feel ridiculous, and shout again. Nothing. Others comb the garden, rustling through reeds and startling doves. One apprentice spots what looks like a dark blur in the distance and runs after it tonally to discover it's a large cat with anger issues. He returns, scratched and silent. By midday, the panic has softened into weary searching. You trudge down alleys, peering under carts and past open shutters. You pause near the spice vendor, who offers you a pouch of falcon-attracting cumin. You decline. He lowers the price. You still decline. Then you hear it. A low, guttural crayak, followed by a gentle scritch-scritch. You freeze, slowly turn, and there, on the edge of a mud-brick wall, is Shapper. He's preening, calm as a monk on a mountaintop, and beside him, a parrot, bright green, beady-eyed, and smug in that way only parrots can be. It squawks again, mocking, almost. You stare. The parrot flaps to another perch, and Shapper follows. You realize, with slowly dawning horror, that Shapper has made a friend. Worse, Shapper is being peer-pressured by a tropical hooligan with feathers. You whistle softly. Shapper turns, considers, then returns to preening. You inch closer, speaking gently. You offer a strip of meat. The parrot snatches it first and drops it. Shapper squawks disapprovingly. You're now negotiating with a jealous love triangle of birds. Eventually, after a slow and incredibly awkward rooftop ballet, you manage to coax Shapper onto your glove. The parrot watches, unimpressed. You bow slightly in farewell. It squawks again, possibly an insult. You'll never know. Back at the compound, Rostam doesn't ask questions. He just takes the bird, examines his talons, and mutters something about low impulse control. You're too winded to argue. That evening, during rest, you recount the tale to the others. They're riveted. One insists parrots are symbols of mischief spirits. Another says it's good luck, especially if the parrot swears at you. Historians still argue whether parrots were ever truly kept in Persian aviaries or just exotic trading curiosities that occasionally escaped and made friends with expensive birds. Later, Rostam pulls you aside. He's quieter than usual. Birds do not fly away without reason, he says. They are loyal but also wild. You must learn both sides. You nod solemnly, understanding less than half, but feeling all of it. You spend the next few days tightening security, checking Jesse's testing perches, and, yes, glancing skyward more often than you used to. One morning, you find a green feather, wedged in the gutter. You pick it up, smile, and tuck it into your sash. From now on, when someone asks about your first falconry crisis, you'll say, "The bird left me," for a parrot, and they'll think it's a joke. You'll know better. By now, your wrist has toughened into something halfway between leather and legend. The falcons no longer test you with sharp little nips. You're part of the rhythm. The glove, the lure, the nod, the release, it all flows. But today, you're learning something deeper, something quieter. The language of the glove, it starts with a twitch, a barely perceptible shift of the wrist. To a falcon, that means prepare. Add a roll of the knuckles, and it becomes steady. A slight twist outward. Wait. A gentle upward flex. Now, you're taught to think of it like music. Each movement a note in a silent symphony that only the two of you can hear. Rostam demonstrates using Nox, his oldest bird. She's a dust-colored Saker falcon, with a blind left eye and the patience of a saint. As he lifts his gloved hand, she rises like breath-made feather. No whistle, no words, just motion. You watch, spellbound, as he loops the signals again, communicating entire sentences with subtlety only a falcon would understand. You try next? Your first attempt is muddy. You wave. The bird blinks. You twitch. She hops sideways. You sigh. She yawns. Too loud, Rostam says. Your hand is shouting. You practice. For hours. You hold your hand still for so long, it forgets it has muscles. Then you practice. Motion without intent, relaxing your fingers without triggering a launch. Eventually, the bird begins to respond. A slight lean, a twitch of feathers, a quiet acceptance. One apprentice tells you falcons respond better to left-handed handlers, because the heart beats closer on that side. Another swears it's all about body heat. A third claims you must hum softly through your glove to tune the tension. Historians still argue whether any of this has actual merit, or if falconers were just inventing rituals to explain why their birds occasionally hated them. Later, you're introduced to a new exercise, the still game. You stand, motionless, while your bird remains perched. You must not flinch, cough, sneeze, scratch, shift, or blink too aggressively. At first, this feels like torture. Midges bite your ankles. Dust drifts into your nose. Your own heartbeat starts to feel like shouting. But slowly it transforms into meditation. Your breath slows. The bird becomes an extension of your body. You're both statues, cast in bronze and silk. A single breeze stirs, and you adjust your hand to catch it. The bird flicks her wings once, settles again, the world around you fades. In this stillness, you begin to sense her weight not as a burden, but as a pulse. The gentle tension of life balancing on your arm. It's humbling, exhilarating, terrifying. Later, at dusk, you observe an older falconer named Farhad. He's a legend in the compound. His glove is worn nearly translucent, patched a dozen times, stained with memories. You sit beside him as he trains a new kestrel. No commands, just gentle gestures. A twitch of his pinky, A slight rotation of the elbow, the bird lands, eats, waits, launches again. You ask him how he learned. He shrugs. I watched the bird. Then I let it watch me. Eventually, we stopped trying to impress each other. He shows you his glove up close. Tiny runes are stitched into the leather, not decorative. Each marking reminds him of a motion, a moment, a mistake. This one, he says, pointing to a faded symbol near the thumb, means don't flinch when she glares. You think about your own glove, scuffed, uneven, smelling faintly of yesterday's fish. Maybe it needs a symbol too. You carve a tiny line with your knife, just a scratch, invisible to anyone else. It marks the day you finally felt connected. Later, in the quiet of the bird chamber, you sit with your falcon, Seema. She's young, temperamental, with a fondness for snatching shiny objects when you're not looking. But tonight, she rests easily on your glove. You give her the signal, just a lift. She shifts, you flex, she launches. Not far, just a glide to the perch, but smooth, clean. She turns. You nod. She ruffles her feathers. You swear she's smirking. Outside, the moon has risen. Silver light filters through the latticed walls, casting shadows shaped like feathers across the stone floor. And there you are, you and your bird, speaking in silence. You're up before the sun, packing what little gear you're allowed into a camel leather pouch. Your glove, a spare lure, a tightly wrapped ball of raw quail meat, and a pouch of dried apricots that may or may not be partially squished. Today, you're joining a caravan, not just any caravan, mind you. This one travels the eastern branches of the Silk Road traders, merchants, falconers, even a few wandering mystics, all headed toward a distant outpost where birds and secrets change. Hands over bowls of cinnamon tea. Your job, escort a falcon. Not yours. This one is a guest, a pale-winged creature from the north named Soria. She's quiet, older, and has the haughty demeanor of a noblewoman trapped in a world of dusty sandals. You respect her immediately. The caravan rolls out at dawn, in a gentle clamor of hooves, wheels, clinking bells, and yawns. Camels grunt, dogs bark. Someone is already singing a ballad about figs. The desert expands in every direction. The sky, the color of cool copper. You sit atop a mule, you named her Parsnip, holding Soria steadily. She shifts now and then, testing the air with small movements. Around you, falconers speak in low tones. One man carries his bird in a hand-carved chest lined with lavender. Another has rigged a tiny tent onto his saddle more for the falcon than himself. By midday, you've heard no fewer than 6 arguments about feather oil. One man insists sesame oil adds shine. Another claims that olive oil encourages preening. A woman chimes in that her bird prefers no oil at all, just morning mist and sunbeams. Historians still argue whether these preferences were based in avian science or just human fussiness disguised as expertise. The road is long, but never dull. At one oasis, traders swap stories under the shade of tamarisk trees. A Mongol rider shows off a falcon with metal rings braided into its tail feathers, not for show, but for sound. So she sings when she kills, he explains proudly. You nod like that's completely normal. Soria remains silent, dignified. She ignores the younger bird squawking nearby, ignores the man offering hawthorn berries, and certainly ignores the child who tries to pet her. You apologize. She squints. You feel appropriately chastised. Later, you sit beside a falconer from the west. His name is Amin, and his bird Tala wears earrings. Yes, earrings. Tiny golden hoops, pierced through the featherless spots just behind her eyes. You blink. He shrugs. My grandmother pierced my ears the same way. Family tradition. Tala seems unfazed. You ask if it's common. He shakes his head. But it keeps thieves away. They say a bird with gold in her skin has magic in her flight. You suspect that's more deterrent than folklore. The days pass. Dusty roads give way to rocky climbs, then grassy plains, then back again. You sleep on woven mats, eat lentil porridge, spiced with cumin, and wake each morning with a new respect for birds that fly hundreds of miles and still manage to look elegant. One evening, the caravan stops near a wind-worn ruin, a crumbled fortress from some forgotten campaign. The falconers perch their birds atop the stones, silhouetted against the setting sun. It's here that you see something strange. A man older than the hills, with hands like cracked clay lifts his falcon without a glove, bare skin, no fear. The bird steps onto him like it's the most natural thing in the world. They stand together in total stillness. Someone whispers that he's a Murgdar, a bird whisperer from Baluchistan, said to be able to hear falcons' dreams. You don't know if that's real. But when he whistles, his falcon flies not with speed, but with grace that quiets the entire caravan. Even the wind seems to hold its breath. That night, you share bread with another apprentice. He jokes that one day, someone will build a school just for falconers, a university of wings and gloves. You laugh, but the idea sticks. There's so much knowledge flying loose on the wind. You dream of maps traced in feathers, of birds leading you to places no cartographer ever dared sketch. The journey ends at a desert outpost, nestled beside a dry riverbed lined with tamarisk and almond trees. Traders unload crates of spices, scrolls, silk, and falcons. Birds are weighed, examined, fed. The outpost has a strange rhythm, half bazaar, half temple. One stall sells falcon hoods carved with verses from Persian poetry. Another offers flying lessons via tethered kites made of feather replicas. You're tempted. Before you leave, you visit a shrine tucked into the rocks. It's dedicated to Samurg, the mythical bird of wisdom, mother of all knowledge. Pilgrims have pinned feathers to the wall, each one a wish. You leave one too, quietly. You don't write anything on it. Soria is handed off to her new handler, a soft-spoken woman with calloused fingers and gold eyes. They click instantly. You feel a pang, not sadness, just release. You bow slightly. Soria doesn't look back. That night, beneath a sky peppered with stars, you whisper the flight commands in your sleep. Your glove rests beside you, empty, but still warm. You return to the compound as the sun dips low behind the horizon, casting everything in gold and shadow. The gate creaks open, and you're greeted not with cheers or questions, but a simple nod from Master Rostam and a bowl of warm lentils. No one asks what you saw. No one has to. The routine resumes, but it feels different now. You move through the courtyard with quieter steps. Your glove feels heavier, somehow weighted not by the falcons, but by all they've shown you. Tonight, the air smells of rain, though the sky is clear. A storm must be whispering from far away. The birds are restless. Or maybe it's just you. Rostam finds you near the edge of the compound, staring up at the sky where pale clouds drift like feathers. He says nothing, just hands you a small hood, new, but familiar. It's stitched with green silk thread, in a pattern you recognize from the caravan. The inside smells faintly of saffron and cedar. You know the falcon it's meant for. Seema stands, waiting, perched and calm. She watches you approach, head slightly tilted like she knows something you don't. Maybe she does. You secure the jesses with a practiced hand. Lift your glove. She hops aboard without hesitation. The final flight of the season is yours. You make your way to the training field in silence. The others have already gathered Brentices, falconers, even the goat who seems dramatically invested today. The light is low, the sun, a disk of bronze melting into the hills. Rostam raises a hand. You nod. The hood comes off. Seema blinks. Once. Twice. Then she launches. And for a moment, there is nothing else. She rises in a slow, elegant spiral, each wing beat measured and exact. The breeze cradles her like an old friend. You hold your breath. This is no showy dive, no lore-snatching trick. It's something else entirely. She climbs higher, past the height of the minarets, above the caravan path, above the garden's tallest sycamore, a solitary silhouette against a sky now turning from gold to slate. Then, without signal or sound, she tucks her wings and drops not with force, but grace. Like a ribbon unspooling, you lift your glove. Her eyes lock onto yours, and she returns, landing perfectly, quietly, no fanfare, just presence. You feel something shift in your chest. Not pride, not victory, just understanding. Later the courtyard quiets. The falcons are hooded. The apprentices are folding their cloaks. Someone hums a lullaby. Nearby, you sit beneath the arbor, glove in your lap, watching the stars yawn into existence. A younger apprentice sits beside you. He asks, "What does it feel like when they fly for you?" You pause, searching for the right metaphor, then say, like the wind trusting your hand, "He doesn't get it. Not yet. But he will, and you'll teach him." The stars overhead are soft now, like dust sprinkled over silk. The torches around the courtyard flicker low, casting long shadows across the stone paths and wooden perches. Somewhere, a falcon shifts in sleep, the tiny jingle of its bell blending with the breeze like a lullaby known only to wings and whispers. You sit still, body quiet, eyes heavy. The day is far behind you. The birds are at rest. The glove is off. You breathe slowly now, deeper, letting each exhale soften the corners of your thoughts. You've walked dusty roads and wound mountain passes. You've stood beneath sunbleak, banners and traded stories in a dozen tongues. And you've learned to speak a language older than words taught by feathers, motion, and patient silence. Tonight, your dreams may be filled with a rush of wings or the weight of starlight on your glove, or perhaps nothing at all, just the slow drift of sleep. Calm and steady, like a falcon gliding on a midnight breeze. The birds are quiet now, and so are you. Let the stillness wrap around you like a well-worn cloak. Let the sound of the wind carry you someplace soft and far away. You've earned it. Close your eyes. We'll fly again another night. End of script. Sweet dreams.